Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola, live here at Jazz at Lincoln Center here in New York City. In a career spanning some 5 decades, jazz vocalist and luminary Mary Stallings tonight is performing with the Eric Reed Trio in support of her brand new HighNote record release, Don't Look Back. And on this recording, she's diving into some great jazz composers ranging from Mal Waldron to Benny Carter to Ahmad Jamal. As you might know, Miss Stallings' career started out in the Bay Area, and she's recorded with some great luminaries ranging from Monty Alexander to Cal Tjader to Dizzy Gillespie. The list goes on and on. She also decided to not be the traditional jazz vocalist. In fact, during the late 70s and early 80s, she decided to retire from the music industry to raise her daughter. But through a lot of her fans and through their persistence, she got back into the record industry back in the early 1990s, and she hasn't looked back ever since. We sat down earlier, we talked about the brand new CD, we talked about her career growing up in the Bay Area, talked about her musical influences, as well as talked about what keeps her going at 5 decades in jazz. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the sounds of Miss Mary Stallings featuring the Eric Reed Trio live here at Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola, live here at Jazz at Lincoln Center.
Look at you and suddenly something in your eyes I see. Soon start bewitching me. It's that old devil moon that you stole from the sky. It's that old devil moon in your eyes. You wear your glass, baby, this romance hard to handle. Stars in the sky, blazing their eyes, can't hold a candle to your razzle dazzle. You got me flying high on a magic carpet ride, full of butterflies inside. I wanna cry, I wanna laugh like a loon. It's that old devil moon in your eyes. Just when I think I really haven't done, oh no, in your eyes, blinding with love.
Don't Look Back. This is your brand new record on HighNote Records, and you have again partnered with an accompanist and pianist, Eric Reed, who I've profiled here on the Pace Report. Tell me about this record. I know that this record, you guys went deeper into the jazz composer like Ahmad Jamal and Benny Carter and Mal Waldron.
Yes, I feel that for jazz to continue to live, and it must live through some of the contemporaries of jazz who have made a great contribution with different arrangements. So I kind of geared toward that way because a lot of the songs are just really beautiful and they haven't been recorded a lot. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to focus on our jazz musicians and their compositions.
You know, Eric also penned 2 songs on this CD for you, and Eric and you guys have a very, very big relationship. In fact, you guys go back to your Max Jazz Live at the Village Vanguard recording, and you guys have a very big chemistry, and it's working very well for you guys.
It really does. You know, every once in a while there's somebody that comes along in the industry. Sometimes it takes a long time to really find that one person. I wasn't really looking for it, but I mean, I guess instinctively in life, I was looking for that one, like Billie Holiday, Lester Young kind of relationship that you really understand each other, understand each other's the direction that you want to go. And the first time I sat down with this young man, I knew this was it. And because he really hears me. He really hears me. It's just like a twin. And he understands where I want to go, and he feeds me. And sometimes I'm left out there because I don't know where I want to go, and he just kind of gives me something, a direction, and it always works.
Eric also, he's accompanied a lot of great musicians over the years too, and something that you said just a second ago, he listens to musicians, and he's got a very, very honest and very pure heart when it comes to playing this music.
He certainly does. He does. He really does. That's what I love about him. It's true. I just said it's the truth because he is the truth. His music is the truth. You know, it just is so deeply embedded in him. He started at such a young age, and so he knows nothing but that music. And I mean, the music is him. He is the music. You know, it's just you can't get away from it. And he, as you say, it's very pure, very real.
Mary, you know, another thing about your records and performing, especially your recordings, you've had some heavyweights as pianist and accompanist. I'm talking about Jerry Allen, Monty Alexander. I'm thinking of Gene Harris. What is it about these pianists that you're attracted to, and what is it that they're doing to you musically when you're performing?
You know, I've been very blessed in that I've recorded with fine companies who really embraced my ideas as to the people that I would suit me, and so they allowed me to have just who I asked for. And I was very, very fortunate because, as you know, in this industry, it doesn't always happen that you get everybody, you know, that you really want. But I just knew that through these people, they would take me a different direction, and I'd be able to, you know, to explore, and especially with Jerry Allen, because she's very, very full. And when we did the I Remember Love CD, that fans would say, you know, Mary, you really went another direction. You know, you didn't get a chance to really show yourself. I said, but I was showing myself. That's another side of myself. And that was the intentions, you know, to have somebody very creative that would open up another avenue to you, you know. And so, yeah, I've been very fortunate. Each of them have brought something to the plate. And don't leave out Count Basie, because that was yeah, Mr. Splanks. So, you know, that was a challenge. Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, so it's just been a very fruitful time, you know. I'm sorry that I missed Hank Jones. You know, I worked opposite him, but that was one that I did miss, but one of the great masters. But I was very fortunate to, you know, to have met up with, you know, other great ones also. Yeah.
When I am 33 and I love to wander, it's just the gypsy in my soul. There's something calling me from way out yonder.
You grew up in San Francisco, and you still reside in the Bay Area. And, you know, San Francisco is like another one of those great musical cities like Detroit and New Orleans and New York City and Philly. Tell me about some of your origins, because I understand that you recorded at about 14 years old.
No, about 10.
10?
Yeah.
It was a gospel record.
Yes, it was. I recorded actually with Olivet Records, which I later found out that Fantasy Records, when I was signed to them, they said they cut those records, but they never could locate my record in which I made, and I was really disappointed because I made them at a church event, and they were selling pretty good, you know, for a religious record. It was quite a deal, yeah, and. That was the first, and it took me about how many years later before I recorded again, and when I went into with Fantasy. But I'm looking forward in the future to actually, with Eric Reed, we kind of discussed it, to do a religious CD.
It's about time.
Yes, absolutely. And I've been ready for it for a long time. In fact, when I was with Fantasy Records, I pursued some other musicians from the church and had planned to record after the Cal Jader recording, but it never went off. So I think this is the time, especially with Eric, because this is truly his background, his calling.
You know, you grew up around music. In fact, one of your first mentors and heroes was your uncle. He was a band leader.
Yes, he was. Uncle Orlando was an alto player, and I guess his claim to fame that he sat in with Count Basie's orchestra a couple of times when they came through San Francisco, and he had to take one of the seats of one of the guys. But and it's funny, when I went on the road with the band, Sweets Edison said, he told me, he said, Stallings. And he thought I was Uncle's daughter. I said no, but Uncle's quite popular among all the guys, and so that was a great time for me. That's when I got smitten from religious music to bebop, because that's where he led me. Because Uncle was a bebop hero, a musician. That was his music. He knew everybody, and most of the guys knew him. Yeah, so he led me to that direction.
And you also you grew up in a wonderful period of music. That was the time when there was a homogenation or no homogenation of the distinct roots music, especially black roots music. There was blues, there was rhythm and blues, and then rhythm and blues evolved into soul music, and then there was jazz. Tell me about some of your influences, because you do come from the gospel and the R&B vein, but also the jazz vein.
Yes. Well, actually, when I made the transition, the one who really impressed me was Dinah Washington. Because she came from the church and she sung the way that I guess I wished I could sing, but she had such a powerful sound, because actually working in the church, you don't use sound systems, you're acoustic, so you learn to sing that way, and so that was very natural for me to gear to the way that she would, her projection, and that's why. And plus, she just inspired. I guess a lot of jazz singers are not going to tell you, but she was just inspiring. She was just amazing to me. To be able to have the chops that she had, such a little lady, and she had some chops. And in fact, the guys used to tell me that she could out-sing a whole band, without the system. That was really something. That was very impressive. But so I really kind of leaned toward her direction. Yeah, she was, the most greatly influenced. The person who really greatly influenced me.
You also sang around the Bay Area, and you sang with and saw a lot of greats. One of them was the founder of rhythm and blues, which is Mr. Louis Jordan.
Yeah. Yes, I did. I was in high school. and just almost finishing up. And I had been working a club across the bay from San Francisco, Oakland, California. And that week I had worked, and the next week he was to come in. And the week that he came in, he caught my show, I guess a Saturday night, and asked me to join him to be part of his organization for the next week. And I worked with him that week at the 53 Club. And it was like summer, almost summer, time for summer holiday. So he invited me on the road to go on the road with him. And, of course, being a young girl, you have to take the opportunity when it comes. And it was kind of a conflict, with family at first. But my mother could go with me, and the conditions in which I was going to be working under, I wasn't too thrilled about it. I was quite, kind of squeamish about it, because in those days you go to Las Vegas, you had to, women, the African Americans had to dress on the strip in a trailer. You couldn't go into the club, into dressing rooms and dress, go. You had to go through the back door. All that was quite a shock to me, and didn't really want to do it, but I said, this is my opportunity. It's summertime. I better take this job. But anyway, I missed a rehearsal, so he fired me. So I was let off the hook. I mean, I wanted to, but I knew it wasn't, that wasn't the best conditions that I wanted to travel. I've never experienced that kind of environment, that was a time of deep segregation, so I didn't make that trip. But the working with him, I learned so much, though. In fact, I just recorded one of the songs I just recorded, "Goodbye," and in fact, I performed it tonight. I learned it from him, because he used to sing some of the most compelling, beautiful ballads. People know him. He's R&B and the father of R&B, but he did some great material. And so I learned a lot from him. Yeah.
I'll never forget you. I'll never forget how we promised one day to love one another forever that way. We said we'll never say goodbye. Our own way of living. Now you take the...
You have had a wonderful, wonderful life, and one of the most important and most pivotal parts of your recording career is the time with Mr. Billy Eckstine. And Mr. B, in my opinion, is one of the most and criminally underrated vocalists. I mean, he should be in there with Sinatra, Bing Crosby. Tell me about your time with him, and tell me some of the things that you learned from him and why he really is an important figure to jazz music.
And I'm so glad you asked that, because every time I get a chance to talk about some of the great ones, it seems like he comes up for me as one of the greatest, and I agree. He's not acknowledged in the way that he should be. He had one of the first place, not only his talent, but the talent that he had with his big band, some of the greatest musicians. And that says a lot for him, to be able to have all these guys wanted to work with him. I mean, all the greatest. But to hear him sing himself, he was miraculous. Nobody could touch him. I listen to him a lot now, especially now. I do the YouTube thing, so I can really get some of the things that here's some of the things I didn't even know that he was involved. You know, the kind of music he was involved. He did a tune called Babaloo, Afro-Cuban, and sung it phonetically, and the way his voice would soar through those notes, it was just incredible. I don't hear any singer do that. He had, he has a bass voice, but he could hit those octaves just like Sarah Vaughan. And in fact, I said one time to him, I said, B, I said, I listen to Sarah Vaughan, and I hear you all over. And he kind of smiles. He said, well, we kind of inspire each other. And she says the same thing. I mean, you can hear the tonality of sass, and it's truly B all over. So many of the artists, the musicians especially, just really hail him, but I don't know why they don't acknowledge him. I just don't understand. He's a very important figure in jazz, and I don't understand why he's not acknowledged. And I often say that. And I hear him a little bit more, since I've been talking, a few others have been talking. I hear him just a little bit more, in some of the jazz programs, but not as much as I'd love to see. And if you do, because they have this program where they listen. I guess it's on the a cable station where you listen to all the music, but they never show a picture of him. And I don't get it. I've never understood that, because I've learned. I mean, most of the things I've learned, a lot of things, especially stage presence and dealing with audience, I learned that from him. And, and the way that he used his voice, the way he phrased, it was just, there's many things you can pick, out of the things that you have incorporated within your music, I know why I waited, know why I've been blue. Each night for somebody exactly like you. Why do we spend money on movies over two? When no one plays these love things exactly like you. You make me feel so swell. I wanna hand the world to you. You make me understand each foolish little dream I'm dreaming.
does jazz music mean to you?
To me, it's life. This is truly an American art form, but it's a world art form. I mean, it originated here in the U.S., but it speaks of life. It speaks of everything that came before us and everything that we live now. You know, it's I think the only creative music that really is like, I mean, a sense of art. You know, sense of the true sense of our history. You know, I know for myself that this is the greatest means of expression, because for myself, I'm able to reach out to people, to really have them to see me as a person. I think that and instrumentalists, all the same thing. They're giving of themselves in a way that ordinarily, you know, a lot of times we pass by each other. People pass by each other, but you never get a sense of them. But I think we're very vulnerable when we're on stage because we are giving of our true self. That's the most honest way of, you know, to see us. And I think in the arts, this is the only true form of a deep expression, and I just think I'm just grateful that it has come about, you know, that we have this to rely upon, from religious music to the blues to jazz. I mean, well, both together. I think is a very powerful force. It brings people to the world together. Jazz has brought many people together. I mean, I know that traveling sometimes, like in countries where you don't speak the same language, but the mere fact, the music of the heart, it's the music of the heart that really, you know, translates the conversation. You know, you have a dialogue because you have something to go on. And I just think jazz music is everything, and it'll live forever. It'll take other forms, but it's still our jazz music.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace reporting live here at Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola, live here at Jazz at Lincoln Center here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank the legendary Miss Mary Stallings for her time, as well as Mr. Eric Reed and his trio, and the staff and management here at Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola, as well as Jazz at Lincoln Center. As always, please visit my website, www.thepacereport.com, for my weekly column as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Until next time, peace.